Warren, we've spoken a little bit about the Queensland rivalry that went on in those early years. State of Origin started in 1980, but like I played in the 70s, and I have some clear memories of how things were leading up to State of Origin. And the guy who was the brainchild of State of Origin as it relates to rugby league, of course, was Senator Ron McAuliffe, the Queensland chairman at the time. Now, I know Aussie Rules had tried it, and I think it went okay early, but they dropped the concept out. They might even be back trying it again now, I'm not sure. But it was McAuliffe who pushed really hard at the back end of the 70s to get State of Origin in. And then if you remember, the first State of Origin, 1980, was if after 2 games of the series, one state had won both, then they'd play a one-off game, which is what happened in 80, and then the same thing happened again in 81. But I like to look back a little bit before State of Origin and just see what the landscape was, particularly in Queensland, because that was the time New South Wales had got the poker machines in, I think maybe early 60s or something, so they were getting this firepower and drawing more money and drawing Queenslanders down to New South Wales, and that was the bit that hurt us. Not only did they go and play in New South Wales, but when they picked the residential teams, Queensland, New South Wales, through that period, of course, our Queenslanders, Artie, Elton Walters, they were coming back to play against us, So it was very difficult. Now, McAuliffe was doing some really good stuff in that time, because in Queensland, he brought John Sattler up from Sydney. Now, Sats came up and played for West. The first game that I ever played for Queensland, the first year, Sats was with Queensland in 73. I can tell a story about that one too. He whacked Bill Hamilton. Remember big Bill Hamilton?
I do remember.
Yeah, I'll tell that one a little bit later on. But so Sats came, big Robin Orchard, the big Kiwi.
Yep.
He had the biggest forearms. I went to grab his forearm one day packing in a scrum. I couldn't close my hand. So, but Ronnie Raper came up. So he was starting to bring some players up here. But also what he did, the senator, he retained a few key Queenslanders. So Greg Vivers went on a retainer under a QRL subcontract. Yours truly got a small amount to not be tempted by New South Wales clubs. Ross Scrudrick had come up. He was at St George's Young. So what McAuliffe was doing was trying to have a rearguard action of just all these players going to New South Wales. So he did some really good work there. And then he then got State of Origin up and running. Interesting, and I'll come back to the start of State of Origin, but it was also interesting, in the 80s, he got State of Origin up. But yes, the likes of Wally and Gino and all the guns were getting still these massive offers to go to Sydney. So he counteracted those as well in the 80s. So this was the State of Origin wasn't like a one-off thing that happened that saved the day. There was a lot of, McAuliffe had find a meter squads and extra training and, experts in. So he did a lot of work to sort of put Queensland in a holding pattern, but then build it once the Broncos came in and the like.
Yeah,
so it was.
See, the way I remember it.
Because you were still in Sydney then?
Well, I was in Sydney, yeah. And so the way I remember it really was that Queensland versus New South Wales before State of Origin was just a stepping stone to play for Australia. It didn't have that feel to me. It was people cared about state versus state, but that was really, it was almost like a trial match to play for Australia. I don't remember it having a huge intensity, and I think the crowds were probably dropping New South Wales versus Queensland matches.
And we went to some out of grounds. We played at Leichhardt Oval some stage. But the reason was happening was we were hardly winning any games. Because New South Wales were the Australian side. In terms of fairness, all the Queenslanders had gone down, bolstered what was, Langlands and Cronin and Bobby McCarthy. I played against all those guys, so it was really out of whack.
But what I can't remember is whether there was much resistance to the idea of State of Origin. I know it was discussed for a couple of years. I don't know whether, probably the New South Wales clubs are probably thinking, what's in it for us?
But you were right. I got some inside stories
So,
on
when,
that.
so Ron McAuliffe definitely swayed, I would think, New South Wales into, okay, we'll agree to this. We'll do it this way.
Mate, I remember.
But we should just explain. So what the key element was then, where state of origin was the criteria. Where you grew up, where you played your early football. If that was Queensland, you played for Queensland. You no longer played for New South Wales. And players who had played for New South Wales, like Arthur Beetson, then were very happy to play for Queensland, state of origin.
Yeah. Mate, except for Greg Inglis, New South Wales are still dirty on that, aren't they? That was a little bit of a slip
That's
up.
in Queensland.
So, but it was so interesting in that period because as you came up to that state of origin time, a lot of those Queensland New South Wales games were still fought. I was part of the deal. As I say, the Greg Vivas, the Johnny Langs, Jeff Richardson. Prior to my time in the 60s, like Reg Cannon, Dennis Moy, there was some very strong Queensland sides, but the New South Wales side was just about the Australian side. So we didn't win a lot.
See, I played with Rod Morris at Balmain.
Yep.
Rod Morris, of course, Des was a legend in Queensland.
Yep.
But Rod, who was also a very good player, went down and played for Balmain.
Yes.
In the Balmain team, but I don't know if he ever played for New South Wales. I can't remember.
Yeah, not sure. The interesting one of a guy who, when Johnny Lang, at his retirement year, went down and played for the Roosters. He played for New South Wales in 1980 in those 2 games, and then played for Queensland in the 3rd game. So there was a fair bit of sort of shuffling going on.
Yeah.
But
the other thing I do remember is when State of Origin began, there was still, it really wasn't highly regarded in New South Wales. People in the first couple of years...
Come on, Warren, they were trying hard, mate. They were trying.
I'm not saying when they ran on the field they weren't trying to play, mate, they did not even train together the way Queensland did. Queensland was all in. You got a squad.
Queensland got on the drink, mate.
Queensland did get on the drink, but it was an all-in, training session which we still have today, like 10-day training. Queensland went all in from the beginning. New South Wales put together. They named a squad. They didn't even train together. I don't think the first week. They had a run on the might not even been played on a Wednesday night then. 1 or 2 runs during the week. It was. From a New South Wales point of view back then, it was kind of, all right, we'll do this, but it was a bit of a throwaway. And Queensland got off to a good start, obviously, because their players cared a lot. They were good players, and they cared. And New South Wales weren't fair income for the first couple of years. Then after a few losses, then New South Wales started to go, hang on, we're not happy anymore.
Mate, you've lost your honorary Queensland badge, mate. You didn't hold that for long.
I'm telling you, this is the way it was.
Well, mate, I can give you an inside story to support some of the comments. So no, in 1980 particularly, as far as I'm aware, and I can't say it's 100% true, but a number of Sydney clubs said to the New South Wales players playing State of Origin that night, go easy, don't get injured. Right, now this is just a rumour, and they thought it was going to be funsies, right?
Right.
Artie changed that in the game. Remember
Yes.
that he got on a Mick Crane and tossed him around.
Yeah.
So I think going into that match, there was a general thinking that this is just a circus. This won't last, won't go.
But the difference is that the clubs in New South Wales, all they cared about was getting their players back.
Well, that's right.
And so they weren't going to talk up Origin. I mean, I had Paul Merlot played in one of the very first Origin games.
Yeah.
I played with him at West Magpies, and like, it kind of barely registered. And Bobby Cooper, I think, played as well in one of the very first Origin games.
Yep.
But it kind of barely registered. Good on you, boys. Have a, see you next week.
Mate, you are right, but I think Artie made a big statement in 1980.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
I was there that night actually, and I remember going home thinking, and I didn't call the game. I'd only just retired. I retired in '78, and I went home thinking, from a passion point of view, like a Queensland feeling, I thought passionately and engaged. That's the best game I've ever seen. I just felt so good because of the concept, right? Now, in the second game, New South Wales lead early after about 25 minutes, as I recall. I go to watch this one as well. They lead 15-0. It's a three points for a try in those days, so they got 3 converted tries.
Right.
Queensland run them down. And that's when Wally You know, I think he was, by then he played 5'8", I think, and you know, there was a great resurgence. So in a way there was, no one from New South Wales had really been sold on it. But Queensland, mate, when you're down 15-0, that's a bloody good effort against one of the top sides, you know.
I have no doubt.
And then it grew from there.
Yeah,
you know.
I have no doubt whatsoever that Queensland were behind it,
Yeah.
you know, hugely from the outset.
Yeah.
Big, you know, intense, passionate,
Yeah.
just absolutely desperate to win for their state. And so I have no doubt about that. But you just mentioned the man who really created State of Origin after, well, Arthur Beetson first,
Yeah.
Wally Lewis. Wally Lewis became the king of State of Origin, became the symbol of Queensland's supremacy and ability.
Yep.
And really, Wally, just because he was such a competitor and such a good player, he just made State of Origin because everyone loved him or they hated him.
Yeah, and mate, I mean, we were pretty fortunate. I mean, I called most of Wally's career. Like he was in Brisbane right through the 80s. You know, played with Valleys. I think the first year I finished up at Brothers. So he played a couple of games for Valleys. Then he played with Wynnum right through the 80s. So we were doing their games. You came in mid-80s, didn't you? You would have seen, you know. And then McAuliffe also had set up all those guys in the Wynnum Club. Remember that? There was Wally, Gino, Greg Dowling, the French brothers. It was like a who's who of. But Wally was, mate, so dominant, and I mean he could just pick his time, couldn't he? But coming back to that State of Origin, mate. So I'll give you. There was not a lot of. Persistent, well, I know about persistent, but New South Wales weren't sure about how Origin would go. Queensland were all in. So they win in 1980, win in 1981. That then changes the whole landscape, and they then went to three game States of Origin. Queensland win 82 and 83, as I recall. 82, so 83, 84, and then 85 is the one when Steve Mortimer, when New South Wales win the series for the first time. So by then, I think your point is right, that New South Wales weren't sold on Origin in the early days. But by 85, they were, and that was when the whole thing was just going from there, wasn't it?
Well, you know, in saying that Wally Lewis was, you know, the symbol of State of Origin, you think, who's the next symbol of Origin for New South Wales? And I think Steve Mortimer, you know, beating on the ground because New South Wales had won. Yeah, you know,
the message was clear. Benny Elias was quite emotional in one of those early wins too, I think.
Benny was a bit later, I think,
had the blood on him.
Well, also, and of course, Tommy Raudonikis. Tommy was definitely an early symbol as well of real passion. But Tommy, he was such a winner, such a determined player to win a game of football, no matter who he was playing for. Whether he would have been a very good Queenslander, Tommy.
I remember him coming off the bench one day in a state of Origin game, and he effectively changed the game. Like he was like a tearaway at everything, you know. Just as you say, he was just knocking everyone over, and I mean, I think Queensland might have even been in front at that stage. But mate, just coming back. I love my rugby league. I love the concept of State of Origin. I don't think I've ever missed a game, and we'll shortly get to this series that we're in the middle of at the moment. But I just think the younger generation think Queensland, New South Wales football started in 1980. You know, whereas there was a lot of blood and guts delivered before that. And I'll give you an example. Like, we weren't winning often, but sometimes there's this suggestion that the Queensland spirit, as it is now, and it's terrific, sort of only, some people, State of Origin's made it. Well, let me say that the spirit pre-Origin, even though we weren't winning, the spirit, like we had Barry Muir as our coach in the middle of the 70s. Like, another halfback we keep talking about, but he's like Tommy. He's so passionate. He was an inspiring coach. So I spoke with Reg Cannon this morning. Now, Reg was a Brothers player, but he played for Queensland in the he played a number of games for Queensland. He plays in 1970, and they win. I knew Queensland had won another game back there, so in 1970. So I go, and what do you do these days? You Google it. Mate, there's one of the most almighty calls by the ABC, a fella called Kev Kelly, so in 1970.
On the ABC.
On the
Kev
AB,
Kelly.
yeah, radio, right?
Okay.
And Peter Gallagher was the expert. And what happens is New South Wales get a lead of, I don't know, 14-7 or 15, and there's about 10 minutes to go. So Kev Kelly's going ballistic, right, with the Queenslanders. Des Morris gets through a gap. This is on radio on this now. Pops this pass on the way down up to Des Morris, who scores his second try for the day, and they're then like 14 all or whatever the score was. Wayne Stewart, young bloke who I'd played under 18 with the year before, so he's come straight into first grade and straight into Queensland in that same year. No, he kicks the goal from so they now, I think it was head 16-14, and there's a scrum to pack, and Kev Kelly goes. And the after game reports about they've humbled the Blues, and you know the passion that came out. So what I'm just saying there, I guess for the younger generation, there was we didn't win a lot because of the number of Queenslanders to a certain extent that had gone down to New South Wales to come back and play against. But the passion was there, so no matter what it was. And just to give you a little snapshot of the years that I played, like we drew 2 games in a row at the back end of 74 and won the first in 75. This is against the Australian side. So there was a lot of pride and a lot of passion, and Barry Muir was part of that. So much as I love State of Origin, it was needed and all, there was a lot of effort going in by those old boys, and I think that just needs to be, I think most people know it. But it's great.
Maybe not, maybe not. Look, there's the generations coming through now probably don't know a lot of that. But I understand what you're saying, that it was there, that desperation and desire to win and the pride in playing for Queensland, and absolutely, I understand from people in Queensland and people like yourself who were playing pre-1980, absolutely, I have no doubt that that's totally true and well warranted. The point is, I think New South Wales just weren't aware of that. That really wasn't a big deal, I don't think.
They still wanted to win though, mate. They did not want to get beat.
I'm not saying they weren't trying to win. Everyone runs onto the field trying to win, but I'm just saying I don't think they were aware of that. Maybe I'm wrong. If you ask some of the guys from that era,
I think it was an evolving
before me,
era.
really. But maybe so. But it's fed in that what you're talking about. Absolutely fed into why Queensland wanted to win when State of Origin began.
That's right. That was the history that drove a lot of people.
And New South Wales never had that type of passion. It wasn't a passion of revenge or of getting something we never had before. New South Wales didn't have that motivation.
No.
They'd been winning for years.
That's right. They were so used to winning. Yeah. But anyway, State of Origin obviously was needed because of that sort of turmoil and whatever. And, what a great product it's been over all that time. Let's have a look, mate.
Can I just say quickly, it has changed a lot though, State of Origin. You remember the good old days when the likes of Barry Muir got the whole cockroaches versus the cane toads going.
I was there the day Barry Muir called cockroach. I was at a training run, and he said, "Well, get those cockroaches." And there was a journo over on the fence, and he's fucking ran them down. That was the start of it.
You don't even hear that mentioned now.
No, that's been dropped.
New South Wales were the cockroaches, and Queensland were the cane toads. Yeah. And before the game at Lang Park, there were the QRL would put, there'd be someone running around with a giant can of cockroach killer, and someone dressed up as a cockroach running around on the field. And then the last game, I'm pretty sure it was the last game Mal Meninga played, there was a giant 15-metre high Mal Meninga created and marched down the middle of the field.
You sure it wasn't a real Mal? He looked like that a lot of times.
He did.
I called a lot of his games too.
I know someone who sewed some of the patches on the on the huge, what do you call it, like a character they created of Mal Meninga. But there was it was kind of like, in a way, cartoonish, but it was very funny and it was a lot of fun. But behind it, there was huge passion.
Yes.
And now, I mean, I think that the quality of the football and the whole professionalism and the marketing has kind of taken over, and we don't have that kind of fun, intense. element. Now there's still
Dropped away.
passion to win and lose,
Yep.
but it is very different now.
Well, mate, a couple of years ago, I went to the State of Origin at the MCG, and as an example of the change of the entertainment space, there was all the music blasting away and all, but the fireworks display was absolutely amazing. Like it was absolutely, quite. We got beat pretty badly that night, so the highlight for me of the night was the fireworks display.